Alright, people. According here to Men's Health magazine, right, I'm going to read this because this is something that it it's I'll read it, right, and I'll get into it. So it's by Anthony Joshua, and it says Anthony Joshua is currently spending 4 days completely alone with his thoughts in a pitch black room. He spent 2 grand on the Darkness Retreat experience, which ends today, Friday, and said, I'm doing it for character. In this, it's just me and my mind. End quote. That is. Where do I start with that? So, look, it's Joshua's money. He can spend it whatever way he wants, right? But if he had said, right, in Men's Health magazine that I spent however much to do this dark room retreat, and I spent maybe 4 hours, 6 hours, I would actually say that that might help him a little bit. It might, because just to be sometimes that's what you need. It genuinely is. Sometimes if things are kind of getting a bit on top of you, sometimes you need to just go take yourself out. Now, for me personally, I would actually say if I was in AJ's team, I'd be saying, get yourself out in nature. Go actually to like a cabin in the woods or something and go and just experience nature. Being alone in nature is better than being alone in a dark room. For me personally, and I think for a lot of others, that would be the best thing to do. But if it was a case of him spending, a bit of time out in nature, or if this works for him, spending a couple of hours, I would say, yeah, that might be okay, just to kind of get into your mind, start, just to kind of give yourself a bit of an assessment. And Joshua's spoken about doing something like this before, not necessarily this, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was, I think, in the run up to the Andy Ruiz, the first fight, he said he'd received some training. Was it Navy SEAL training or something like that? About worrying about getting hurt and stuff like that. And obviously, like, if he did get it, it didn't pay dividends in the fight, because when he got hurt in the third round, he stayed hurt. But he's done stuff like this before. Now, the issue I have with this, right? He said he spent 4 days completely alone with his thoughts in a pitch black room. That's not good. That's not healthy. I don't care what anyone says. That prolonged amount of time is not good and healthy. Now, whether he's staying in the dark room all day, 24 hours, or whether it's just, we'll say, like from 9 to 6 or something like that, 9 to 5 or 9 to 4, still it's too long. It's too long. Sometimes you do need a couple of hours alone. Maybe if it works in a dark room to reassess, get your mind right and stuff like that. But this prolonged period of time, I think that's a very bad idea. Because you'll often find in prisons with the worst inmates, they'll put them in solitary confinement, which is essentially, it's not the same, no, but it's not too dissimilar. And that's done as a means of, well, I don't want to say torture, but it's something similar, because solitary human beings are naturally sociable creatures. Being alone in a dark room for 4 days straight, whether he's doing it straight or whether he's taking intervals, I don't know, but let's assume he's doing it 4 days straight, that is not going to be good for your health. Mentally. Certainly not. I don't understand why he's spending 4 days. That to me is just a head scratcher. Joshua, since the Ruiz loss, and some would argue since the Klitschko fight, but certainly it's been more prevalent since the Ruiz loss. He's been mentally, it seems, just all over the place. And you do have people out there who say, "Oh no, he's not. This is what he's doing." Like, he's even admitting it here. And again, I don't know why you'd admit this. I really don't. Like, if you go and do something like this, I don't know why you tell someone, because for fighters looking on, they'd be like, and look, I'm thinking it, and I'm sure others are thinking it, oh yeah, mentally he is not there. And if fighters can spot chinks in your armor, especially if you're, essentially making them aware, especially something like a mental chink, they are going to jump all over that. It's like going into a battle. Imagine you've your army to one side, you've your army to another, and you're kind of like, oh, this battle's going to be tough, and someone deserts from the other army and says, actually, the king or the commander, he's all over the place, the army is in disarray, just attack. It will give the opponents absolutely all the motivation they need to say, I'm having you. And I think that Joshua, look, I don't know, look, I'm not in his team, I don't know what goes on in his head, but it just, what would you say it is, Is it the pressure over the last, say, decade? Because he's been a pro now for over a decade. And obviously, Joshua was an Olympic gold medalist, yes. A very good achievement, mind you. Although, the Erislandy Savon fight, there is that. but a very good achievement in a very limited amateur career. Okay, so to be thrust into the pro game and to be fast tracked when realistically Joshua, physically he was able to be fast tracked, but mentally is very different being fast tracked. And you look at 2017 specifically, that year where he was British boxing. There was no one on the horizon. Fury was on his hiatus. There was no one really who was there. It was just the AJ show. There was literally nobody. And he was doing it and he wasn't crumbling. He wasn't, believe it or not. Back then he wasn't crumbling and he had massive pressure. And I guess the pressure now, having kind of had to, he said, in that post-fight interview, that bizarre one against Robert Helenius, he's carrying the heavyweight division. Well, he was essentially carrying British boxing back then. He was carrying Matchroom, he was carrying Sky, he was carrying British boxing because there was no Ben Shalom, not that that was necessarily a bad thing, but Frank Warren wasn't doing much on Box Nation and BT. It was the very early days of that. And there was no other stars. You could say there's not really any now, in regard like Fury and Joshua are in the twilight of their careers, you would say. There's not really any up and coming. But back then there was literally nobody. Fury, as I said, he was a non-entity at that point because he wasn't active. He was out of the ring. So Joshua was doing everything and he held it together pretty well. And since that loss, it's like, in one sense, it's kind of like the pressure went with that loss, but then it was heaped back on him. I do often wonder this, if Eddie Hearn, Rob McCracken, and even Joshua, or people around them, after that Ruiz loss had said, you know what, yes, we know a Ruiz rematch is going to pay us astronomical amounts of money, but let's bring him back. Let's bring him back slowly. If they'd done it then, rather than doing it the way they did, how would Joshua be? Would he be as, mentally fragile, is probably the right word to use, as he is now? Had they done it and let him build basically what he's doing this year with the building himself back up, had he done it post Ruiz, would he be in a better position now? He probably would be. And, against Usyk is really when it all came out, the second fight when he had that breakdown. When you look back in hindsight, you think to yourself, with all the pressure he had, and even going into that fight, he had only signed that contract with DAZN. I believe he was, had stakes in DAZN after that. And, it was a big thing for him. He was carrying the network behind him. And you got to wonder, that was bound to happen. I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner, truth be told, the kind of just sporadic outburst like that. And obviously since then, Joshua, he's not looked right in his first two comeback fights. Physically he's looked fine, but mentally, gun shy, afraid of his own shadow. And now this, as I said, a pitch black room for 4 days, a few hours, yeah, maybe. A 4-day retreat, maybe with just yourself, maybe, bring your dog or something to nature or something like that. I'd be all for it. I'd be saying, yeah, that's a good idea. But this, I don't know, man. I don't know, because AJ has a tendency to overthink. And if you're left alone with your thoughts for that amount of time, how much overthinking will actually happen? So I don't know. It's a strange one. And again, I don't understand why you would admit that. I would just keep that private. I really would, because again, fighters are going to look at that and they're going to say, oh, he doesn't know, he's alright, I've got him. The fighters are going to be looking at that. It really is. It's don't try. The chinks might be there, and they'll be there for people to see, but try and not play up to them. Try and not kind of almost admit to it. I know he's not technically doing it there, but in a roundabout way he is. So yeah, strange one. I really do. I think it's a very, very, very strange one. And some people could turn around and say, well, maybe he's doing it because you see who's that guy? I think he's Eastern, I think he's Swiss or something. The guy who says he does, cold showers in the morning, this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 and that's how he's, yeah, really, yeah, I'll bet. Maybe he's watching, again, maybe Joshua's looking at these kind of self-health experts and stuff like that and thinking, they're saying they're doing it, are they actually doing it? And that's what I got to say on that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It is a strange one. Joshua spending 4 days in a dark room. Let me know. Do you think that actually that will benefit Joshua? I don't think it will. As I said, maybe 4 hours thereabouts it might, but 4 days, human beings are sociable creatures at every level. Even the most kind of secluded guy you'd ever meet, human beings are sociable creatures. You know, you take that away, it's a real bad thing for people. It's a real bad thing. You're going to have some serious issues, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the video. People hadn't planned on doing a video today, but that came out, so I said I better talk about it. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. Peace.